All right, welcome to the Savage Nation. You know, every once in a while a story comes along that shakes you to your core, and you have to ask yourself whether to cover the story or not. And I've evaluated whether or not to cover the story I'm about to cover for reasons which will soon become obvious. The core audience of my show, so far as I can tell, are obviously conservatives. Many religious conservatives, both Christian and Jewish, listen to this show religiously. And what I'm about to talk about will alienate one of this core audience to their core. But I evaluated whether to deal with this or not, and I'll tell you something. If I'm going to take on truth wherever it leads me, then I have to take on this topic. Here is the headline, and I'll let you be the judge as to whether I should even cover it or not. I was shocked to read this morning. 2 infants contract herpes following circumcision. 1 tests positive for HIV. Now, this was not normal circumcision done in a hospital, as is done on millions of men without their consent, by the way. We are talking about herpes and HIV transmitted to little babies, infants as a matter of fact, amongst the city's, New York City's ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. Both of these cases were circumcised in a Jewish ritual, and I want you to understand, I'm reading this to you. I almost throw up when I read it to you. Both of these babies were circumcised in the Jewish ritual known as whatever, whereby the practitioner or so-called mohel places his mouth around the baby's penis to suck the blood to cleanse the wound. Now, I'm not reading this for shock value. I'm reading it because I'm sickened by this barbarism. One of the little babies developed a fever and lesion on his scrotum a week after the ceremony, the New York City Health Department said. Although New York City now requires parents to sign a written consent form acknowledging the health risks of this practice, none of the parents of the 2 boys signed the form, said the Deputy Commissioner for Disease Control at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. He said it was too early to tell if the babies would suffer long-term health consequences from the infection. Did you hear what I just said to you? Since the year 2000, the New York City has required parents to sign a consent form before this ritual can be performed on their babies, because since 2000 there are known to be 13 cases of herpes, with 2 resulting in brain damage and 2 others in death to the babies. Neonatal herpes can cause death or serious disability among infants. Dr. William Schaff, the chair of preventative medicine at Vanderbilt University, told media there is no safe way to practice the ritual. These terrible infections are completely preventable, said the doctor. They should not occur in the 21st century with our scientific knowledge. Now, here comes the punchline. Some Orthodox rabbis defend the long-standing practice as one performed tens of thousands of times per year around the world with the safety of the child of paramount concern. Last year, when New York City enacted the informed consent law, Rabbi David Niederman, executive director of the Hasidic United Jewish Organization of Williamsburg, told this to ABC News. This is the government forcing a rabbi practicing a religious ritual to tell his congregants it could hurt the child. He went on, he said, if God forbid there was a danger, we would be the first to stop the practice. Jewish Week reported earlier in the week that one of the mothers was not identified, denied receiving a consent form to sign. So let me start from the top. After undergoing an Orthodox circumcision ritual, 2 infant boys have contracted herpes, with one of the little babies testing positive for HIV-1, the New York City Department of Health said yesterday. In this practice, the baby is confronted by a so-called mohel who places his mouth around the baby's penis to quote, cleanse the wound and suck away blood, according to medicaldaily.com. The week after the ceremony, one of the boys developed a fever and a lesion on his scrotum, etc. So I have a question for you. Should this barbaric practice be banned by law? I didn't say ban circumcision. That is an entirely separate question. To the Jewish people, this is a covenant with God. Circumcision is practiced amongst people who are Jewish and non-Jewish. And it is done, if it's done surgically, there is no known physical harm from circumcision. I will not discuss the psychological issues of circumcision upon an infant who has no knowledge of what is being done to the infant. That's a separate discussion, which I'd rather not get into right now. But I'm asking you another question, which is very logical. As a trained scientist, I have to ask this question. Remember how outraged the world was when we learned that there were Muslims in this country practicing female genital mutilation? Do you remember the uproar over that? We said, barbaric! We cannot permit these immigrants to do this to women. And because of the outcry, female genital mutilation was outlawed in the Western world. It's still practiced in Africa, where people are living in about the first century. Should this male genital mutilation be permitted to be practiced in America in the year 2013? I'm asking a simple question. If you can't even answer a question like this, what does that make you? I am demanding that you answer this question. I am demanding an answer from the Orthodox Jewish community, in particular, by the way. I am demanding an answer. I want someone to defend this barbaric ritual. I did not say circumcision. That's a separate issue. I am talking about genital mutilation of babies in this Orthodox Jewish practice where the so-called mohel places his mouth around the baby's penis to so-called suck the blood to cleanse the wound. What person living in this age can accept that ceremony as valid? To me, genital mutilation of children should be abhorrent to all people. Adult men putting their filthy mouths around the freshly mutilated penises of baby boys is an indication of illness as far as I am concerned. Thankfully, many Jewish people are now discussing and speaking out against it. I frankly never heard about it until recently. I never knew this was done. I almost threw up when I read this, to be frank with you. New York City permits this. They don't permit female genital mutilation with Muslims. I'd like to know why these child abusers, these so-called mohels who do this, are not being dragged into court and charged with sexual battery and aggravated battery. Up to me, I was the mayor, I wouldn't ban soda. I wouldn't ban salt. I wouldn't ban fat. I'd ban the mutilation of babies' penises in this manner. Can anyone defend such a barbaric and perverted custom? You can call the show, 855-400-7282. How is this possible? The rabbi says if God forbid there was a danger, we would be the first to stop the practice? Well, there's cases of herpes and AIDS. Rabbi, what's the matter? You didn't read it in your local newspaper, Rabbi? Because you didn't read it, it didn't happen, Rabbi? I never saw anything like this. It's disgusting that this practice is not halted immediately, and the perpetrator is jailed. Signing a paper that says your child could die from an unnecessary barbaric ritual is not enough for me. Now, I understand that there are people who want the covenant with God, and they believe that this is a necessary covenant with God. And I believe that you can practice circumcision in a hospital setting, although we can discuss that unto itself, by the way, as to whether or not you believe that should be permitted altogether. In that, you want to go down that road, that's a whole separate discussion, incidentally. See, no one in the world of radio will discuss this, ever. It's impossible to believe that anybody in radio would ever discuss this on a talk show. You remember what I just said to you at the beginning of this show? I've been talking now for only about 9 minutes. I told you every once in a while a story comes along which shakes you to your core. And then you ask yourself, should I cover the story or not cover the story? I then said to you that one core element of my audience are religious people, Jewish and Christian alike. They listen to me because I often quote the Bible. They listen to me because I often cite family values. They listen to me because I support traditional family structures. But they wouldn't expect me to be talking about this type of barbarism, this type of ritual, in this manner. They would say, hush, hush, my darling, don't say it because, people are liable to think bad things about Orthodox Jews. So I said to myself, well, I know some Orthodox Jews, and they're very nice people. They're very nice people. They're very religious people. They're very family-oriented. They're not all saints. Plenty of these Satmars were arrested last week, the biggest crooks on the planet. Remember that little story out of the New York Times in the New York City area? One of the chief bugaboos with the fur hat up there in Muncie Park, living in a mansion, liked his brandy and cigars, took a $300 million loan from Citibank to develop shopping centers, defaulted on it. That one then went to politicians. Yeah, and he quoted the Bible. Plenty of corruption. Read The Red and the Black, one of the French novels of the 19th century. Read The Red and the Black to understand what I'm saying to you. Oh, I've met some wonderful people, both religious and non-religious. I've met some miserable, horrible people wearing the garb. Some of the worst people I ever met on the planet wear the garb. And it's not limited to any religion, as you well know. Oh, no, you don't have to wear the black hat to step on a pregnant woman's foot because she's not Jewish as you get off an airplane. You can also talk about the Christian scandals with the garb, what they do to boys, a lot of them. That's also, we well know that one. The suing of the church. They almost ruined the church because a small percentage of priests are pedophiles. Right? So we understand it occurs, that there's good and bad in all religions. We understand that. But I feel obligated to talk about this for a number of reasons, some of which I feel I will tell you and some of which I will not tell you. I believe this is a practice that must be stopped yesterday, and I believe I don't care how many rabbis get up and scream anti-Semitism. It doesn't matter to me because the imams also said the same thing. The imams in the Muslim faith said, no, this is our ritual. How dare you in your dirty, filthy, secular American world where we love the welfare, how dare you tell us how to treat our daughters? We're not going to listen to you. Well, nevertheless, female genital mutilation was stopped, thank God. Do you hear what I'm telling to you? Did you hear a word of what Michael Savage just said? I don't care if you've listened to radio from 5 o'clock this morning until now, anywhere in America. I don't care if you watched every television show. You have not heard anyone discuss this today. You've not heard anyone talk as passionately about this today, yesterday, nor tomorrow. It will never be covered again by anybody in radio except me. Because I have a mission on this radio program. And my mission is very clear. And that's for you to figure out what it is. HIV is not a long-term consequence. New York City doesn't ban this. Why? I think this practice of Baal Peh should be banned. I believe that male circumcision should be permitted, but it should be permitted in a hospital under medical conditions. Period. End of story. No other way. No throwbacks from the old world with a rusty knife. No one with a bread knife from the Bronx. I'm sick of this. And you know what you're going to hear now. I'll be attacked from today until the end of my life by all the people who never said a good word about me. They'll come after me like with talons now. No one complained when female circumcision was made illegal, even though Muslims considered it their religious right or duty to cut their daughters. Now, not all Muslims. Modern Muslims who live in the modern world don't do it. We're talking about the immigrants who came here who were stuck in the first century. Oh, and they still do it with stones to their daughters with sharp rocks in Africa. It is illegal to cut off a girl's prepuce, even to make any incision on a girl's genitals, even if no tissue is removed. Even a pinprick of a girl's genitals is now banned in America. Why are boys not getting the same protection? Why? Tell me why. Tell me why boys are not afforded the same protection. Now, you know what's going to happen. Can you imagine if the Catholic Church had a ritual such as this? What if you read that this was a ritual in the Catholic Church? Do you think it would be going on? It's the Savage Nation. I invite your conversation on this topic only right now. 855-400-7282. I'll be right back. What is this ritual? It's known as Metzitza Bapeh, whatever, whereby the so-called mohel, I'm sorry to tell you, I know it's very nauseating to say this, to believe this goes on, the so-called Jewish ritual circumciser actually places his mouth around the baby's penis to suck the blood to so-called cleanse the wound. Now, female genital mutilation was outlawed because we were all shocked to hear about it. That barbaric religious practice was thrown out because common sense and hygiene trumped it. Why not here? Palm Coast, Florida, Ben, tell me why. Tell me why this shouldn't be banned.
I just feel like it honestly shouldn't be banned because, number one, religion is a freedom. And I'm not 100% sure how far back this practice goes, but regardless, if it has some place in their religion, and I'm not trying to throw out regulations and things like that, but I mean, if there's a way where you could make it safer, I'm not saying that 100%.
Wait, Ben, let's hold it. You made a position. You said because it's in the religious practice, you can't ban it. So how did they ban female genital mutilation amongst Muslims if it was in their religion?
Because enough people came forward and said that they didn't agree with it.
All right, so that's what I'm trying to do, is I want enough people to come forward and say enough is enough. Stop this barbarism now. Save the boys from this barbaric practice. Okay? I'm taking a position. Am I right or wrong?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hello.
Well, I can't keep summarizing what I'm talking about every time after a break, but I'll summarize it one more time in this hour. MedicalDaily.com, Fox News reported that 2 infants contracted herpes following circumcision, herpes now, with 1 testing positive for HSV, which is herpes simplex virus 1, not in any circumcision, but in a certain type amongst the ultra-Orthodox, where the circumciser or mohel places his mouth around the baby's penis, allegedly to suck the blood to cleanse the wound. I'm nauseated even telling you the story, but I feel obligated to tell you the story. If I could tell you what foods that I think you should avoid, then I could tell you what practices I think you ought to avoid. That's number one. Number two, female genital mutilation was outlawed amongst Muslims because it was so horrendous that common sense overrode this throwback practice in America and in Western Europe. They banned it. It was such an outcry, it reached the UN. This should reach the UN. Should I cover this topic at all? Or should I go hush, hush, my darling? What should I hear? It's not good for the Jews for me to talk about this? What, am I in a cult? I'm not allowed to talk about this? Why? I'm a scientist by training. I'll talk about anything I damn well please talk about. Dave in Hartford, Connecticut, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Yeah, Mike, I tell you, this is why I love you. You're right. My kid is circumcised. I'm circumcised. My father's circumcised. But it was done in a freaking hospital. It's not done, like you said, by, I don't know.
All right, but here, look, I saw the article. I got sick reading it because to me, I know it's mutilating. It's so, there's something demented about letting a man do that to a baby to begin with. That's the essence of it. Forget about the herpes. Do you think this is a sane thing to do with a boy, that the first touch he has of his penis is of a man, an old man doing this to him?
Absolutely not. No, it's not.
Now think about, what psychological damage does this do to an infant? That his memory, his first memory associated with his genitals is that of an old man with a beard doing this to him. Tell me what damage that does to a child's mind.
I don't know. I mean, I
don't know. No one studied it because no one would dare even discuss that. It can't be good for the child, can it?
No.
Can it be good? Can it be good for the infant to have that memory? Explain how it'd be good for the infant. Let's start with the positive. WABC New York, Aaron, your opinion. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. First of all, they said that he had herpes, right? Now, they did not prove that it came from the practice of Metzitza Bapeh. That's number one. Number two...
Wait, hold on. Just because you said that doesn't mean you're right. Okay. This has been going on since the year 2000, where at least 13 cases of herpes with 2 incidents since 2000 from this barbaric practice occurred. So much so that the city began requiring parents to sign the consent form because it's become a problem in the Orthodox community, Aaron.
There was actually doctors that opposed this, doctors, not just the guy from New York City Health Department doctors that proved that it had nothing to do with the herpes. You can make the research and you'll find out. And second,
Say that again?
there are doctors that proved that the herpes did not come from this practice.
Okay, wait, what doctors and where can I read that study?
I don't know right now offhand.
So therefore it's made up by you and your friends in order to justify this practice.
No, Michael, it's not. You can go make...
No, it's not. I'm a scientist. Give me the evidence. Show me the article. I'll read it.
You didn't either give evidence, right?
What do you mean I didn't give evidence? The New York City Health Department said that there's been at least 13 cases of herpes with 2 resulting in brain damage and 2 others in death from the rabbi doing this to the infant.
And Rabbi Belsky, okay, from New York, contacted a professional doctor, a very big specialist, and he agreed that it's not true. Okay, so now that's the only thing I remember.
Hold on. I don't know Rabbi Belsky from a wart on my toe. That's number one. Number two, you're saying a doctor like he's God. Unless there's a scientific paper attached to what you are saying, how can we even evaluate the validity of what you are saying?
I know, but you were just saying something from a newspaper, too. You can go...
No, it's not from a newspaper. It was in the Fox News. But if you go to medicaldaily.com, you can find the original studies which show that there have been at least, and I mean at least, 13 known cases of herpes as a result of this since the year 2000 from this ritual. Let me ask you, you're defending the ritual, Aaron. It's a sensitive topic, obviously. Why must it be done this way? Why can't it be done surgically?
Surgically? Okay, because there's our religion... For thousands of years, we did exactly what we were told to do by God.
Oh, well, show me in the Bible where it says an old man shall do this to an infant.
Excuse me, do you ever see the Talmud? Okay, Talmud.
You're playing Talmudic rabbi with me. Let's deal with the Old Testament. Where in the Old Testament does it say that you should do this to an infant boy with the mouth of a mohel?
Man, now you're playing rabbi with me. You know what I'm saying? There's entire Talmud that dates...
Well, I am the rabbi. That's right. This is my program, and on this program, I'm the chief rabbi of Helm. I'm the rabbi of Helm. So in my hand, I have the Holy Scriptures translated into English, which I've quoted thousands of times because I'm a believer in God, and I will find the reference to circumcision, but nowhere in the circumcision reference does it say an old man shall do this to a baby.
Okay, I'm telling you that's in the Talmud. But can I go to another point?
No, you can't go to another point because most people don't know what the Talmud is. So tell everybody what the Talmud is.
Okay, the Talmud is the main guide of the entire ultra-Orthodox community.
All right, but who wrote the Talmud?
It's based on the Talmud.
But who wrote the Talmud?
Who wrote the Talmud? Well, there's two. The Talmud is actually a explanation on the Mishnayos, which is an explanation on...
Yes, but the Talmud was written by learned men, meaning rabbis. Is that correct?
Yes, rabbis in Babylon.
Who were interpreting the original Old Testament, meaning the Bible, period. The 5 books of Moses, so to speak, which my larger audience might be familiar with. We are talking about Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those are the holy scriptures that most people on earth who are educated would understand. The Talmud they wouldn't understand, but the Talmud is an explanation of what each sentence means in the Bible. Am I correct in that?
It's a little more than that because it actually was not an explanation made by man. This was given over to Moses. Okay, we call it.
No, Moses didn't write the Talmud. Moses never wrote the Talmud.
That's right. Moses gave it over, and it was always.
You're just going over my words. I said Moses did not write the Talmud.
He gave it over in words. And it was,
what do you mean gave it over? Moses dictated the Talmud? Where did that come from?
It's actually a Mishnah.
Now, this is now bordering on fantasy. If you want to believe in it, God bless you, but the Old Testament is allegedly the Word of God. Most people, even Christians, will accept that. The Talmud is an interpretation of the words of God. And that is written by man, not by God. So therefore, if man wrote it, man is fallible. Therefore, some of the interpretations are open to interpretation themselves, Aaron.
No, but actually God gave the interpretation over to Moses, and it was always studied by heart.
Now we're bordering on pure, unadulterated belief rather than reason. There's no reason in what you're stating.
This is not belief. This is. I mean, I've been studying this for years. This is it. You can ask anybody.
No, I'm not going to ask anybody. I'm going to go to, a pickle salesman and ask him this? Who should I ask?
Well, you want to talk about the Orthodox community, so you're asking an Orthodox Jew.
Well, that doesn't mean you know everything about Orthodox Judaism, does it? And moreover, Aaron, there are Orthodox Jews who do not practice this form of circumcision. Is that correct?
Actually, it's not correct.
You're telling me there are no modern Orthodox who do not practice this Metzisa Bepa, if I'm mispronouncing it, pardon me?
Yeah. No. What I call Orthodox is, and what real Orthodox is, people that are guided by the Talmud. Now, there are something called modern.
No, I understand, but there are modern Orthodox people who would consider themselves Jewish, who follow all the laws of God, but they don't do this to their babies.
No, they pick and choose. They are not fully Orthodox. Because Orthodox means you follow every single thing that it says.
But Aaron, I don't mean to shake your faith, but you pick and choose as well. You may think you follow all 600 commandments, but you don't, do you?
You're actually mistaken. Even though you might know about the Satmar guy that you kept on mentioning on the show.
No, Blake, sir. You claim to be ultra-Orthodox, and I respect you for that. And you say you follow every commandment, which are 616. Is that correct?
13.
613. I was off by 3. Most people think there are 10, and they can't even follow them. But the Orthodox Jew follows 613 commandments.
Plus?
Now, wait, let me finish. In Leviticus, it says that you shall kill an adulterer. Do you follow that practice?
We can't.
What do you mean you can't?
If you look...
Wait, hold on. You just said you follow all the commandments, and that makes you very, very religious. So there are some you don't follow, right?
No, absolutely not.
But why don't you kill adulterers?
I'll explain you, because it says that once in 70 years, the Jewish courts killed somebody, and that was called a killer court. It was many...
No, I'm just saying, the Bible says you shall kill adulterers. It says terrible things in the Old Testament. I've read them, but you don't practice them. Modern Jews don't kill adulterers. They don't stone homosexuals to death. They do that in throwback Muslim countries. We know that, correct?
Yes, correct. But Michael...
Okay, but modern Jews don't do that because they choose not to follow that rule. Why?
They don't choose not to follow the rule. They cannot follow the rule unless they have a Jewish court that can rule.
A Jewish court could say it's okay to kill an adulterer?
If we were in our own land and we had a Jewish court and all the proof, then that would be done. And America also executes people, right?
Okay, I'll let it go with that. But there are other statements within Leviticus that ultra-Orthodox Jews don't follow other than not killing adulterers. Is that correct?
No. Anything that we can possibly physically do, we do.
Well, you don't kill adulterers. You just said you don't.
No, because we can't do it with the Torah itself. Requires you to have a special court with special proceedings to prove we don't rely on circumstantial evidence and many different things.
But you're not saying that there are such courts that are in practice in Brooklyn, are there? Where they go out and find someone guilty and kill them, are you?
The courts, no. The court.
Okay. So in other words, that's amongst many within Leviticus that you don't follow.
No, there is nothing. Anything that we don't follow is because we can't. We need a special court of 70 in Jerusalem in order to kill somebody. And
okay, but what about stoning homosexuals to death? You don't do that, do you?
We can't. That also needs a special court of 70.
So you're saying that there's a court that would permit this?
If we had such a court in today's days, probably when Messiah comes, we will have one.
Oh, so you mean when the Messiah comes, you can start killing homosexuals and killing adulterers? That's something to look forward to?
Actually, I mean, we kill in America too, I told you. We kill people that...
Yes, but you don't kill adulterers and people simply for their sexual orientation, do you?
Well, who are you to judge what's worse?
What do you mean, what's worse? What worse in what sense?
It's worse to murder than to do other things. If that's what the Torah says, and that's what it says.
If a woman be delivered and bear a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as in the days of the impurity of her sickness shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. That is all the Old Testament says. It does not say an old man shall put his filthy mouth around the baby's penis and suck the blood out of it.
Well, it says it in the Talmud, and it happens to be...
So the Talmud was written by a degenerate psycho in that case.
The Talmud was...
Why must I sit here and believe that some rabbi in whatever century the Talmud was written, and as I understand it, it was written over a period of years, over centuries, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, well, at least I know a few things. I know a few things about the religion. And so, therefore, this was commentary upon the Bible, written by ordinary men called rabbis, who are fallible because they're men, not God. And so, therefore, maybe they misinterpreted the Bible.
But as I told you, the interpretation has been given over from father to son until it was finally written down in Babylon.
I understand that, but maybe father to son should look back to who started it. Maybe the father or the original father made a mistake. Maybe the rabbi was a warped sicko who said that they should put the mouth on the baby's penis.
I said the original interpretation was given by God to Moses. And then...
Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that's true. I believe that's invented. I believe that that's an hysterical desire to support virtually anything that you want to support by saying it's God-given to Moses, therefore you can't question it. Let me put it another way. 20 years ago, I wrote an article in a Jewish newspaper, by the way, called Kosher Junk Food is Not Yiddishkeit. You probably never heard of it. Why did I write that, and what does it mean? I went to several Jewish dinners over a long period of time because I like the Orthodox people, and I noticed they were eating garbage. They were eating sugar pastries. They were throwing salt on every food that they ate. They were eating fatty meats. It was disgusting to me. And I said, this is not the diet of a traditional Israelite. This is a horrendous misinterpretation of what Jewish food is. And so I wrote an article for a Jewish newspaper that was entitled, Is Kosher Junk Food Yiddishkeit? You understand what I'm saying, correct?
Yes, and you're absolutely right. No one says to eat junk food.
So what? But wait a minute. But up until that point, Jews were buying the worst garbage because it was stamped with a U on it. They figured it was good for them. They weren't even looking at what was in the food. I came along and I said, why don't you look at what's in the food? Cut back on your sugar. Cut back on your salt. Cut back on your fat. Start eating a more healthful diet the way your ancestors ate. So what is the ancestral diet of the Jew, of the ancient Israelite? It's the Yemenite diet of today. It's more like a desert diet than it is of a 19th century Polish holiday diet with flanken and borscht. So anyway, if I could write as Kosher Junk Food Yiddishkeit and educate people to the fact that maybe they were poisoning themselves with what they were eating, why can't I question this?
This is law. This is the Talmudic law. This is the Orthodox.
Well, all right, so maybe the law is wrong. There are laws that are wrong.
Make one more comment.
Hold on, I'll come right back. I realize that this topic itself is upsetting to many people, and you don't want to hear it, but there's nothing, to me, more important than protecting our babies. And to me, this is infant abuse of the worst kind, and I think that this barbaric practice should be outlawed. I didn't say circumcision should be outlawed. That's another story entirely. That's unto itself being debated in some circles. I don't want to talk about that right now. But the Jewish ritual amongst the ultra-Orthodox where the so-called mohel places his mouth around the baby's penis to suck the blood to so-called cleanse the wound, to me, is beyond the pale. Aaron, you have the last word. Go ahead, please.
So the mohel he sterilizes his mouth with alcohol, okay? And the knives they use are very advanced, and they sterilize everything before they use it. It's done extremely safe, even though it's not done in a hospital. And the mole is extremely experienced. He's done this more than the guys that do it in the hospital.
So how do you explain the fact that in New York City there needs to be consent forms to do this because of the incidence of HSV since the year 2000, 13 cases of herpes? Why would New York City require a consent form?
So this is Michael Bloomer's campaign against one debated case. It's debated. Like I
The city last year began requiring parents to sign the consent form to perform this ritual, following a string of health incidents since 2000 that included 13 cases of herpes, with 2 resulting in brain damage. Don't you think that that's alarming? Try to understand that I'm on the side of reason, but reason requires reasoning. Without reasoning, you can have no reason. So if you care to join the conversation with 2 questions, should this ritual, as conducted by mohels, be banned by the government? Number 2, your diversity training horror stories. Let's begin in New York City on WABC. Tom, go ahead. You're up on the air.
Yeah, hi. I don't understand the comparison between the male circumcision, this part of male circumcision, and the female genital mutilation. The female genital mutilation...
The female genital mutilation by Muslims is circumcision.
Yeah, on a female, which physically mutilates them beyond repair and changes the way their body functions for the rest of their lives.
And you assume circumcision does not do that to a human male?
I think it's pretty much proven out there that I think many adult males today live perfectly fine lives with circumcision, and it doesn't physically affect them. I can't say there's no change whatsoever.
Well, but see, this is a separate topic. We're talking about circumcision in general, which I'd rather not go into because I think that's a separate discussion as to the alleged medical benefits, which are controversial, number one. And number 2, the psychological issues associated with circumcision, which I don't think anyone's ever written about, but I would like to discuss one day. Because I, for one, think that a little baby who's 7 days old, when he trusts the mother and the father holding that baby, and then he's turned over and the first thing he feels is a knife on his penis, I would suspect that a boy from the rest of his life has some mental problems as a result.
So, I mean, first of all, that's getting into circumcision again, but I don't think a baby remembers that moment in their life, and unless you're...
Well, now you're wrong about that because babies remember what occurs in the womb. Modern technology has shown us that a baby can receive music. A baby reacts to the mother's anxiety. A baby reacts in the womb now, the fetus, which is why we argue against abortion, by the way, Tom, because to most of us rational people, a fetus is a human being. The fetus is already a human being. The minute it becomes an embryo, it's a human being. Right. And it can feel and it can sense in the womb. That's why we oppose abortion, incidentally.
No, I understand that, but you don't have a problem with the circumcision. It's the mitzvah b'peh that you're saying.
At this time, yes, that's correct. And that's what I'm asking. Why must this practice be continued?
Okay, but I don't understand how you compare that to female genital mutilation.
You mean general? Wait, let's start again.
Because you're saying that the same way they got rid of female genital mutilation, they should get rid of this. Now, even if you think you should get rid of mitzvah b'peh, I don't see how it compares to female genital mutilation.
Well, because to me it's barbaric to have an old man put his mouth around a baby's penis. I don't know how else to put it.
A scene that sounds pretty like in a dark alley with a gross old man.
Well, yeah, to me it may as well be in a dark alley. That's right. Well, why must the man do it with his mouth? Explain that to me. He can't use a suction cup?
No, I can't, but I'll tell you a different thing.
No, wait a minute. He can't use a device like a piece of a rubber that sucks the blood away? Why doesn't he put his mouth on it? Why?
There is a question. But have you ever seen it performed?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you're describing how it performs without ever having seen it performed.
Well, I didn't live during the Dark Ages, but I know what the Dark Ages consisted of.
Well,
I didn't live during the Roman Empire, but there are history books which tell us what the Roman Empire consisted of. I didn't live through the Holocaust, but we know it occurred because we read the history books and we've seen pictures. So therefore, I don't have to live through this barbaric practice to know what it is.
Oh, but is it the health issue that concerns you, or it's a man putting his mouth there?
Well, it's both items. It's the health issues because the human mouth is filthy. The human mouth is, you know, the human mouth is filthy, right?
Well, I mean, let's say.
The human mouth is filthy. The human mouth is dirtier than a dog mouth. Do you know that a human bite is more infectious than a dog bite? Did you know that?
I'll take your word for it.
All right. Well, all right. If a man is bitten by another man in a fight, he probably has a higher risk of disease than he does from a dog bite, unless the dog is rabid. I learned that when I was a young boy witnessing a large fight between men. And I found out that a human bite lasted longer. It was much harder to heal. But the issue is the old man putting his mouth on the baby. Why must that be done? Why can't they use some kind of device between the baby's private part and et cetera?
There is discussion about using a device, and maybe more modern Orthodox, some sects might use it. But the question is not even, you're reading an article that children contract with herpes because of this practice. That's what brought this to your attention, and that's why you're talking about it today. So
correct.
You're adding another element and saying that it's also a disgusting practice from like a deviant behavior type of view. And first of all, that's stepping away from what the article is about. And
well, it is, to me, it's deviance. In this day and age, after what we know, what psychological scars can be inflicted upon babies, how could you not see that an old man putting his mouth on a baby like this would not leave a psychological scar?
But what are you envisioning that he's doing? That he's describing this picture that I don't think happened.
All right, so let's move away from this uncomfortable picture. Why must the mohel place his mouth around the baby's penis to suck the blood, to cleanse the wound? Why?
I think it's done like in a split second in a very small area. I don't think it's done like. Would you describe it like an active?
Oh, a split second. Okay, so it's now the length of time that the man does it, rather than the practice itself that we're discussing.
No, but from the health point or from the deviant?
Human saliva is dirty. Number one, human saliva is very, very dirty.
So it's
full of bad things. There should be no contact between a human mouth and that part of a baby, especially after the baby is circumcised, when he is open to infection. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Cool. But
in other words, when you cut a baby in circumcision, you're opening that baby's skin up to infection. Is that correct?
Probably there is an element where...
Yes. So, therefore, you want to protect the baby the best you can. The last thing you want to do is put an old man's mouth on it. I'll be right back.
Hot Talk 560 KSFO.
It is the Savage Nation. We're talking about a very sensitive topic, one that I puzzled over whether I should even talk about it, because, as I say to you, as a conservative talk show host, which is how I'm typically defined, which is fine, I'm proud of that. I'm more of an independent than a Republican, I can guarantee you that. But nevertheless, a topic like this is very dangerous because it can be easily misinterpreted, and people are afraid of it. They figure, why risk my career and have people get crazy and start saying that you said this and you said that. But I figured, look, at this stage of my career, this is worth talking about because it means so much to me, because there is no more vulnerable population in our society than babies. I don't like what's being done to babies on many levels. And this is an issue that I think is worth discussing. I can't believe I'm the only one who's offended by this practice. WABC, William, go ahead. You're on the Savage Nation.
Good evening, Michael. I'm from the Bris Milah Anti-Defamation League, and we have a very detailed website, brisnyc.com, which has testimony which was given in federal court by Columbia University statisticians, Daniel Berman, who's a infectious control director at the Albert Einstein Medical Center, showing that the city has not shown even one documented case of herpes occurring as a result of bris milah. As you know, the New York State, on their website...
Well, let's slow down. So you're saying that this story is false?
It's a lie.
You're saying that the story put out by the New York City Department of Health is a lie?
Yes. You're a scientist. You know that when that dentist had HIV in Florida...
Yes.
They took DNA samples in order to make a connection, didn't they?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now, you know that in statistics, correlation does not mean causality. You know that.
But wait, did they take the DNA of this rabbi who caused the herpes in the babies in 2004?
No, Rabbi Fisher requested it. He said, take a DNA sample, and you'll see it's not true. If the DNA sample says that...
All right, so let's put aside the issue of the baby getting herpes from the rabbi. What about the practice itself of an old man putting his mouth around the baby's penis? Does that offend you?
No.
Stay on the line. I'd like to hear your answer to that. This is a very, very big topic right now because the Orthodox Jewish community has sued the city of New York to cause a stay on this issue. William, on WABC from the ADL, welcome back. William, you're stating that the baby did have, the baby did get diseased, correct?
Yes.
But you're saying there's no proof that it was the rabbi's contact with the baby that caused it. Is that? I'm trying to follow what you're saying.
Well,
so just let's take it a stage at a time because it's not just me and you talking. There's a lot of people listening. So in other words, this practice of MBP, whatever it's called, I don't know the Jewish phrase, Metzitza Bepeh, let's call it MBP, which is a shortened version, where the individual applies the mouth to withdraw blood or whatever. So this was practiced, but you're alleging that it was not harmful.
It's never harmful. Rabbi Moshe Sofer stated many years ago, 200 years ago.
Oh, wait, let's forget 200 years ago. So how did the baby get herpes?
We don't know. First of all, in one case, they definitely, the baby's twin brother had herpes, and he caught it from direct transmission. And the mother told the Board of Health authorities, his brother has herpes. He probably touched it. They didn't want to hear about it. They didn't want to know.
Wait, here's an article, 40413 from the Jewish Week, not an anti-Semitic publication.
Yes, they are. They hate Orthodox Jews, and they never...
It says, Health Department says, child infected in circumcision that defied New York City consent law. The mother of an infant who contracted herpes following a bris with direct oral suction last month denied receiving the required consent form from the Mohel, whose name the family refused to disclose to the New York City Department of Health, Jewish Week has learned. According to the city's health department, the infant developed vesicular lesions on the scrotum in the weeks after ritual circumcision, and the herpes simplex virus 1, and, quote, was isolated from lesions. According to a health department spokesperson, the parents said they never received the requisite consent form from the Mohel.
So you gave me an instance of selection bias. You take 20,000 cases, and you search for cases that happen one after another, and therefore you're trying to establish causality. Let me ask you a question.
No, hold it. Before you ask me a question, is it not true that according to religious law, halachic law, Jewish law, a religion, the Jewish religion says that according to halachic law, any halachic law may be broken to preserve life and health?
Absolutely. You're right.
Okay. So if there's even a hint that mohels can spread disease, retardation, and death through MBP, why shouldn't you say to yourself, maybe we shouldn't perform this ritual in that manner?
It was not proven at all. There was no connection made.
Well, let's say it was not proven. So what? How many babies have to get herpes or, God forbid, worse before it is proven?
We've been doing this for 3,000 years, Michael, and every parent, go around the city, ask people, they're doing bris milahs every day. Nothing happens. We don't know where the city came up with this stuff from. They dreamed it up.
So you don't know where the herpes came from. You're assuming it came out of the air. In other words, see, this doesn't make sense to a person listening to the show for one reason. It defies logic. If it was performed in a hospital by the Mohel, you could say, well, it was from the hospital, it was dirty. But it was performed not in a hospital. It was not performed in a hospital. It was performed in some other setting, correct?
Yes, and I told you that his brother had herpes.
Well, you're saying in that case the brother had herpes. What about the other cases, the other 11 cases?
The other 11 cases had herpes from God knows where. It could have come from the mother during birth. You know that they get it during the mother.
Yes, that is true. Herpes is prevalent in the womb. That is correct.
In statistics, this is called selection bias. If you take a penny and you flip it 20 times, it'll come 80% of the time, it'll come up heads. But if you flip it...
Well, I understand all of that. I have a PhD, which includes epidemiology as one of the 3 subjects I studied, so I know basic statistics. But if there's even any health risk, wouldn't halacha dictate that the medical professionals take charge, not the rabbis?
New York State on their website, New York State official website says, less than 20 cases, you cannot draw any conclusion whatsoever. It's not valid medically. And this.
All right, so you want to play Russian roulette with a baby then because you're not sure?
You're talking this is something which is fundamental to Judaism, to bring a child.
No, it is not fundamental to Judaism. Circumcision may be fundamental to Judaism, not this particular method. I'm sorry, I don't believe every Jew would agree with you on that.
Which was Germany banned it in the time of Samson Raphael Hirsch. Until that time, going back to Moses and Abraham, it was always done by the oral suction method because the Talmud tells us that a moel who does not do oral suction is fired because he's endangering the health and the life of the baby.
Wait a minute. Does that make sense to you that in this day and age, knowing when that was written, nobody knew the first thing about the germ theory of disease? They didn't even know that germs existed. So why should we base as intelligent people decisions based upon knowledge that predates the germ theory of disease?
Excuse me. My friend Rabbi Lapin says it very nicely. He says that the blueprint for the world was established by God, the manufacturer. And I go back to the instruction manual of the...
Well, I don't know who Rabbi Lapin is, but Rabbi Savage says microbes do not discriminate. They don't know whether you're Orthodox, whether you're a maniac. They don't know if you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, atheist. They do not discriminate. Microbes do not discriminate. I wrote that 30 years ago, and I still believe it to be true.
And you're giving me a theory, but I'm telling you that in practice...
No, I'm not giving you a theory. I'm saying microbes do not discriminate. Is that not a fact?
Michael, there's theory and there's clinical practice.
No, I just gave you a fact that let's see if we are even on the same wavelength. Isn't it true that whether you're religious or not religious, whether you follow all 613 commandments or not, a microbe can still infect you? Is that not correct?
Michael, my friend...
No, please, you have to answer the question. I'll tell you what, I'll play Talmudic rabbi, then you could play it. Is it not true that microbes do not discriminate, that no matter how religious you are, if you're exposed to certain microbes, you can get ill?
Yes, and that's why we have the procedure of oral suction to get the...
Hold on, but wait a minute. Why would oral suction be considered more sterile than using a rubber hose, for example?
The rubber hose doesn't work. Ask any moil, it doesn't work well. It doesn't do a good job of getting that blood out of all these sections where it has to be taken out of. It endangers the life of the child because it's not...
So only the human mouth does the job well.
Absolutely. Ask any moil who's...
Wow. Now, what if the Catholic Church had such a ritual? What do you think the people would be saying?
Excuse me, what is that?
What if the Catholic Church was found to be engaging in such a practice with infants? What do you think would be going on in the earth today?
I have no idea, Michael. I have what's called a Masorah. I have something handed down from Moses, from Sinai.
Well, you identified yourself as part of a political organization, the ADL. Isn't that correct?
No, I'm with the Bris Milah Anti-Defamation League, specifically formed with the BrisNYC.com website, has all the documents.
I see. All right, so your specification, your specialty is this area, correct?
We specialized in it. We have 31 web pages with all kinds of documentation.
William, let me ask you something, and I'm not making a mockery. I hope you don't see me as trying to make a mockery of the religion. I hope you don't see that, do you?
I'm not making a mockery. Would you like to know why Bloomberg did this to us?
No. In the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. I am quoting Leviticus chapter 12, verse 4. Is that correct?
Michael,
I'm asking you a question. And in the 8th day,
quoting?
The flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Does it say that an old man shall perform the circumcision with his mouth?
Oh, you're not listening. It says an eye for an eye. Is that correct?
No, I'm asking you, where does it say in the Bible that suction by an old man shall be performed?
Did anybody ever take out an eye? No, because the Talmud tells us that an eye for an eye has to be interpreted to mean money. It also says you should slaughter an animal as I have commanded you. Where in the Old Testament does it tell you how to slaughter an animal?
Okay, there you go. Well, you just answered your own question. If it doesn't specify that you have to do it with an old man's mouth, then why do you continue to support such a barbaric custom?
Go by the oral tradition from Moses. He tells you what...
Yeah, but there was an oral tradition from Moses to do many things that have been dropped because they've been seen to be wrong.
The oral tradition from Moses are spelled out in the Talmud, Halakha Lamoshe Misinai.
There was an oral tradition to stone adulterers and kill homosexuals, wasn't there?
You think Maimonides was not a clean person? Maimonides.
Is it not true that Leviticus states that adulterers shall be stoned to death?
Michael, don't get off the topic.
Is it not true that Leviticus states that a homosexuality is an abomination, they shall be stoned to death? It's written in Leviticus.
Maimonides.
And yet modern, even Orthodox Jews don't do such horrible things. Isn't that true?
Michael, do you agree that Maimonides used this method?
So now who's the rabbi here, you or me? In other words, if some of the practices that are in Leviticus are no longer practiced, therefore it's possible that you don't have to use the suction method.
Maimonides used the suction method. He was a physician.
He was a physician in what year? In 1300 and what?
Excuse me, Dr. Fred.
In 1300 and what? He predated Lister. He knew nothing about the germ theory of disease. As brilliant as he was, he didn't even know a germ existed.
It's not true. He closed all the open sewers in the city where he lived.
Oh, so he knew about the germ theory of disease before it was written in Western Europe?
No, he closed all the open sewers in that town where he lived.
Well, of course, he was a wise man for his time, and he had very fine analytical skills for his time, but he didn't even know that microbes existed. Nobody knew they existed at that time because Leeuwenhoek hadn't come along with the microscope.
Maimonides Research Institute...
But forget Maimonides. Leeuwenhoek came along and invented the microscope, and then they saw germs after that. And so a modern Orthodox Jew says, look, I have to modify my viewpoint at some point.
Are you familiar with the argument between Pasteur and the other and Bernard, the other doctor? One argued that it's the territory, not the germ, and Pasteur at his deathbed said it's the territory, not the germ. It's the immune system, not the germ. You can have a germ.
All right, so it's this. Yeah, okay, fine. So in other words, you can take the most virulent toxin, and you can introduce it to a human being, and if their immune system is strong enough, they will resist it. Is that your theory?
I don't know. It depends on the dose. You know that.
That's right. It's dose dependent. So an infant, of course, is more vulnerable than an adult. We would agree with that, correct?
On the 8th day...
And so an infant at 8 days old has almost no immunity. An infant is a petri dish. An infant is as vulnerable as a petri dish. I would argue that your community should reconsider this ritual in light of modern knowledge. And I would like to conclude at that point. If there's anyone who disagrees with me, that's good. At least we're discussing it. I want to take one more call on this from another professor who is also a religious man who may not have the same view as you, as the last gentleman. And I hope, again, that when this is discussed amongst those who are listening to the show, you don't take the wrong impression of me. That's all I can say. I had to cover this. There's certain things that are required of me. This is my religion. You know what my religion is? Truth. Because without truth, I don't want to be on the radio anymore. If I have to follow a script, if I have to sit and look over my shoulder, then I'm not going to do this anymore. I'll disappear and you'll never hear from me again. I could just as soon stare at the ocean or a bird. I could look at a plant. I could look at the ocean. I could walk until God takes me to heaven, and that's the end of it. I don't need to do this. What am I doing this for? What I'm doing for fame and fortune? That's not why I'm doing it. Ask anybody who really knows me. I question why I do this almost every day, the way Mother Teresa questioned whether God existed. And unless there's a reason for me to do this, I won't do it. Today, I feel there's a reason for me to do this. How do you like that? I think this is an extremely important program. Let's go to WABC again. Yechiel, thanks for calling. Your opinion counts. Go ahead, please.
I love your motto that you just summed it up because I feel the same way. You said your pursuit is truth. That's your theory and that's your destination. And because of that, I think you're in much closer alignment with authentic Jewish teachings and tradition than even perhaps many so-called rabbis in the Orthodox community, because many people get obsessed or carried away with some rituals and sometimes lose the actual tradition, the actual underlying principles that are facing right in Scripture. For instance, you mentioned it a moment ago. You said that there's a principle, I'll quote it in Hebrew, it's actually a deoraisa. That means it's one of the 613 cardinal laws. Ushmartem ma'od al nafshei seichem. In English, it means one must take every precaution necessary and available and known to man to prevent and harm and preserve life.
Right. I stated it in English. That's right. That's the highest rule of halachic law. It actually supersedes halachic law. If it harms the health, then you forget the law and you go to the health or the safety of the person, correct?
Correct. Now, I do need to clarify, though, that halacha has a clear tradition, a criteria by which to determine whether something is considered a medical risk or not. And today, the view throughout Jewish history was ha-Torah nitna reshus l'roife l'rapos. In English, that means the Torah, the Jewish authority, that's the blueprint for the way one should live life, requires that one consult an expert in the area that's being discussed. In this case, this cannot be decided or arbitrated not by rabbis and not by common doctors. One must seek the professional opinion of the greatest and most specialized professionals in the area to determine whether there has been conclusively established even a risk, a probable risk for this situation and or for this theory or claim that there is a risk. And halachic authority requires that we follow the medical establishment consensus, and to date, there is no doctor that on his reputation will say that we know for a fact that there is certainly a risk, provided, of course, that the mohel is in alignment with his training. Mohels are required, again, by the principle of doing everything you can to protect and preserve life.
But you and I could talk for hours. I want to ask you two things, Yechiel. Are you yourself in the medical profession? Are you a professor of what?
Hasidic philosophy.
In a university or in a religious university?
In a religious university.
Beautiful. Okay, but you're a more... I almost said more about it. I don't know how to put it. Are you a practicing religious man?
I consider myself a striving Orthodox man, yes. Striving to be Orthodox. It's impossible.
So do you agree with me that this practice of MBP is barbaric and should be outlawed or not?
Good question. I could agree with half, but not the other half. I think...
Oh, you're really good, Yechiel. I'll be right back on the Savage
Join
Nation.
the Savage.
It is a crazy question that I raised today. I hope you weren't shocked. I hope you weren't offended. I obviously, had other topics, like about 10 of them I could have talked about thus far, such as, well, I'll do them tomorrow. I don't want to give away show prep to people who copy me every day, so let them do their own show prep. But there are other topics, and you heard them all day long. God bless everybody for doing what they do the best they can. I do it my way, and I do my subjects my way and what I'm interested in. This is of great interest to me. In fact, I've been interested in this issue of circumcision for at least 50 years. It's perplexed me, to be frank with you. It's puzzled me. And I never mentioned and never talked about it. There was a doctor in radio who was opposed to circumcision in general. He was a very nice man. I knew him not well, but I knew him, and he was obsessed with the topic. I never covered it in all my years in radio. I figured, leave certain things alone. But when I read this morning that 2 infants contracted herpes following of circumcision, with 1 testing positive for HSV as a result of this practice whereby the mohel places his mouth around the baby's penis to suck the blood, to so-called cleanse the wound. They said, I have to talk about it. Now, tonight you have heard there is no proof that it was caused by the rabbi. And my argument would be, then what caused it? Where did it come from? So if there's even a scintilla of doubt about such a practice, would you expose your infant to this? Why not modernize this practice? Use a hose. Use a rubber hose. Use something between the rabbi and the baby. No?